A little background. I am an 18-year-old girl, and unfortunately, have a history of encounters like these, since I was merely 6. However, this one stood out the most, since it happened at one of the places I used to escape such things. I was at a local anime convention, about 4 years ago. Yes, I'm a shameful weeb. And then it was even worse. I was cosplaying a character from the popular webcomic Homestuck, the alien character who was symbolized by the zodiac sign of Cancer, named Karkat. It was one of the first times actually buying things and preparing for a cosplay, and I'll admit, I looked a right mess. People liked my expressiveness in pictures though, so I got to take a few. Pictures were half the fun of cosplaying anyway. Another part was befriending some of the con attendees and getting to know them. These can create some pretty lasting bonds. I even dated someone I met at a convention. But, as these stories always go, those kind of people aren't in today's focus. Enter Alucard. This very tall guy had a very good Alucard cosplay. It seemed like he sunk a lot of time and effort into it. The only thing missing was the hat and goggles. But me, being the nerd that I am, thought he was just playing as Alucard when he was awakened for the second time. I asked to take his picture, and he obliged. Eventually we started chatting, and in retrospect, I should have analyzed the conversation more carefully. The character Alucard is a vampire for those who don't know. And the alien characters in Homestuck have a variety of blood colors. I was playing around with my friends since middle school, who accompanied me cosplaying another alien named Terezi. And we joked about the blood colors and stuff. Alucard suddenly decided to butt in with this charming phrase. I have never tasted alien blood before. Want to give me your neck? We decided to believe he was just playing, and played along in character. Thankfully, in character meant my best friend was very low-key protective of keeping my character's blood color a secret between the two of us. However, consider this strike one against our friend Alucard here. Then the conversation switched back out of character again, and we talked about life outside of cosplay. This guy was apparently in the military, and was actually ostracized by his peers. At the time, I couldn't imagine why, aside from the obvious. However, the fact that he was in the military told me that he was at least 18, way too old to flirt with someone 4 or 5 years his junior. The more we talked, however, the more he wanted to see me out of cosplay. He even asked me to take off my wig. My hair at the time was long, curly, easily matted, and hard to get into a wig, so I declined. He kept pressing me to see it though, so I pulled up a picture on my phone. I wish I'd paid more attention to his response to that as well. Most people would call me cute or something like that, but he immediately said I looked sexy. It wasn't a risque picture or anything either. Just a very bored-looking selfie of me wearing bright red lipstick. The day went on, and I was getting more and more uncomfortable as we let him accompany our group, which expanded when my other friend from middle school joined in. She was petite, and the only one of us who was actually Asian, Vietnamese, and Alucard low-key creeped on her as well. Fortunately, my always-present maternal instincts for her protected her from his grasp. I wasn't so lucky. During the opening ceremonies for the convention, he began flirting with me, even though I told him I had a boyfriend at the time. That wasn't a total lie, I did have a boyfriend, but it was a long-distance relationship across the pond. This didn't deter Alucard though. Midway through the ceremony, he clamped his hand down on my crotch quite hard, causing my body to seize up in shock, and a response my body hasn't elicited since I was 7. He only chuckled at this and whispered in my ear, "If you want the fucking of your life, just say yes." I didn't know what to do. I only remember Terezi was saying something like, "Don't fucking touch her," before I blacked out. Turns out, my longtime friends went into badass mode, and we escaped the packed auditorium safely. We congregated in the girls' room, and they calmed me down. And when we all met at Terezi's house later, we discussed the best course of action. The next day, my mother accompanied us, and she tracked this guy down. Her awesome mode seemed to activate as this 5'3" woman grabbed someone easily 6'2" by the collar down to meet her line of sight, easily, and growled, "I'll kill you, motherfucker." When I told my boyfriend about this, he did some research, and the guy was actually in his 30s, as well as autistic. This later made me feel as though it were my fault. But my boyfriend reassured me that this guy was still a soldier, and was still supposed to have honor and morals, regardless of mental disorder or illness. Besides, I'm also autistic, and I would never have done anything as fucked up as that to anyone, younger than me or not. If the fuckwit that did this to me is reading this, here's a message for you. Thanks for ruining my favorite anti-hero protagonist for me, you bastard. I ride public transportation. I hate it. But it's my only option right now. With the costs of college books, classes, and everything else under the sun, I couldn't add the toll of gas to that long list of expenditures. I wake up in the morning and catch a bus that takes me into town. I then transfer to another bus that takes me to school. The process is reversed after school. I end up getting on 4 different buses every day. And there's many other stories I could tell about the mysterious and unusual, sometimes disturbing, occurrences that happen while traveling on these magical vehicles. This technically started a few months ago, and at the time I thought nothing of it. Once in a while people will approach me and we'll have a small discussion. But this didn't quite turn out like the other times. I was standing at the bus station waiting for the bus I used to go home to arrive. A short Hispanic man, maybe around 30 to 40 years old, with a thick accent, black hair, crooked smile, and black trench coat, was beaming at me about 10 feet from where I was standing. You know that feeling you get when you know someone is about to talk to you, even if they're from afar? This is the feeling I got, and I was right. A few minutes later, he walked toward me and asked where he could get a bus pass. I answered his question, and he asked a few more. The bus at this point pulled in, and we were on our way on board. I sat down toward the back because it's more secluded, and I like being kept to myself during the hour-long bus ride. Unfortunately, this girl, whom had just started coming on, thought I was cute or something. I'm a guy, and decided to talk to me the entire ride while being completely disgusting and inappropriate. The windows are foggy, so she decided to write "boss ass bitch" on one of them, if that gives you an idea of how immature she is. She thought she was impressing me. I was obviously annoyed, and none of the hints I was dropping got through to her. The Hispanic man, who had gotten on the same bus, was sitting a couple seats across from me, noticed the situation and laughed at me. I smiled back at him and gave them the very funny look. She got off the bus, and thankfully the terror stopped. I'm usually the last one to get off the bus. Everyone else is usually dropped off before the bus reaches its final destination, near my house. I was expecting the Hispanic man to get off directly before my stop in town, where most of the people get off and either transfer to a link bus that takes them into the country, or get off at the corner. To my surprise, the Hispanic man had not gotten off. Even after getting off the bus at my own stop, the Hispanic man remained on the bus. This is odd, considering that this is the last and final stop on the route. The bus turns around and heads back to transfer, as this is the end of its long journey. I thought nothing of it, and after a few months transpired, The girl still rode on the bus frequently, and bothered me to an extent, but other than that, all had been well. I had not seen nor heard from the Hispanic man again. I'd been getting unusual activity from my phone, however. My Google account keeps showing that my location is from different parts of my state or city, and search history that I've never looked up lingers in my data. I changed all my passwords, but it still persisted. I checked my device history on Google and saw that an Apple device was connected to my account. Knowing that I do not own an Apple device, I became alarmed. This unusual activity was going on and off, and I had been battling with it for weeks, so I decided to get a new email. I'm not sure if this relates to it or not, but it doesn't hurt to explain. This is where it gets weird. A few weeks ago, I was waiting for my bus home again. Just another normal day. Nothing interesting happened. My bus pulled in and I started to get on. I paid for my ride and looked for a seat. That's when I heard my name. "Josh, how are you?" The Hispanic man, wearing his same black trench coat, sitting in the back of the bus, said with his crooked smile. "Oh, hey," I said uncertainly. "I'm good," I replied. I was surprised, startled, and completely confused. I never give my name out to anyone on the bus. I know for a fact I have never given my name to him. Even if I did, it was a few months ago. How could he have remembered a stranger's name whom he barely came into contact with for months? Alerted, I sat down while he continued to talk to me. The annoying girl got on the bus and had a friend with her. They ended up sitting in front of me. The Hispanic man gave me another smile. "Hey, you're not going to talk with your best friend?" he said to me jokingly, as she talked with her friend. "Nah," I said, trying to ignore him by looking out the window. There was a moment of silence from him, and I had thought for sure he wouldn't say anything else the rest of the ride. I then turned to my phone and started texting my girlfriend, when out of the corner of my eye I catch him taking a picture of me. I know what you're thinking. How do you know he's taking a picture of you? This man was sitting across two seats, directly faced towards me, with his phone held high and pointed straight at me. On top of that, I could see in the reflection behind him that he was for sure taking a picture of me. It may have been a video for how long he held it there. I tried to hide my face, but he continued to stay like that. At least 2 or 3 minutes had gone by before he put his phone down and sat normally in his seat again. I texted my girlfriend about what was going on. The moment I sent a text to her saying a crazy guy was taking pictures of me, the Hispanic man started to chuckle while looking at his phone, almost as if he was somehow seeing what I sent to my girlfriend from his device. "Don't worry, this is just the beginning. So Josh, where do you go to school again?" he said happily. I'm in college," trying to avoid giving him a direct answer. "Oh, how nice, how nice. And what time do you get to college?" he said with a smile. I couldn't give him any real information, so I proceeded to lie and tell him exactly when I wasn't going to be riding the bus or arriving at school. "Around 7:30, I said, trying to seem collected and confident. "Oh, nice, okay, yeah. So what time do you get out of school?" he said with another beaming smile. Around 12:30, I fibbed. He continued to ask me question after question, and I proceeded to lie and lie. He honestly asked me over 50 questions in the span of about 15 minutes. I would look out the window, pretend like I'm talking on the phone, etc. But he would not stop asking me my personal questions. "You better stay away from this stuff," he said, leaning over toward me while taking a prescription bottle out of his coat pocket, filled with illegal marijuana, flaunting it at me for a few seconds. Shortly after, the bus started slowly filling up. Each row has 2 seats, and I had my bag on the one next to me, in which I wasn't sitting on. "The bus is getting full. I'll save my seat for someone else," he said, moving my bag out of the way and sitting right beside me. Our legs were touching, and he moved in just the right time so that every seat in the bus was filled. He then proceeded to ask me more questions, all personal. "Someday I have a feeling you're going to travel all over the world," he said, smiling at me with a subtle chuckle. I don't know what he meant by that, but you can only imagine what's going through my head. I started to ask him questions and gathered this information from him in the meantime. He moved from Texas a few months ago to visit his high school friend, whom apparently lives up here. And he apparently has been applying for jobs at restaurants that we were conveniently passing at the time. For example, we would pass a Pizza Hut. Then I would hear him say, "I'm applying at a Pizza Hut." Some of the places he mentioned were actually going out of business. I stopped asking him questions at this point, and just wanted to get home. "Do you have a pair of earbuds?" he asked. "Yes, at home. Here, take these," he said while pulling these grungy-looking earbuds out of his coat pocket. I took a closer look, and examined that they had literally been tampered with electronically. There was wires being shown, and part of the casing was missing from the actual bud itself. Not to mention, they were extremely dirty. No way in hell I was going to take these earbuds. They could have been some kind of tracking device for all I know. "No thanks," I said, trying to sound polite. "Oh, okay. Would you like some candy?" the man said while pulling out some unnamed candy packaged in a thin plastic bag. I quickly declined the offer. He kept asking me questions along the rest of the ride, such as, "What's your last name?" and "Where are your parents? Do you live with them?" As we got closer to my stop, he explained that he had purchased a house. He even showed me a picture. He just bought a house in my neighborhood, and literally lives next door. I told the bus driver a few days later what had happened, and he immediately called the police. They apparently reviewed the bus cameras and verified that I was telling the truth. They confronted him, and I haven't heard from him since. I hadn't ridden in a few days, and the bus driver mentioned that he was on the bus again, but at a different time. I asked him what time he had gotten on the bus, and he said 7:30, around noon. So, do you guys know what this guy was trying to do, or what he wanted from me? I'm seriously looking for answers, but yeah, let's not ever meet again. This happened to me a few years ago. I need to give a few background details before I begin. My mother is from Ethiopia, and my father is a Mississippi native. I am a few shades darker than most Caucasians, but sometimes people mistake me for white. At the time, I was living in the southernmost part of one of the reddest states in the USA, and just got a job as a toddler teacher at a daycare by my house. I loved my job. The children were so well behaved and had the cutest little faces you can imagine. I have always been a sucker for the terrible ones that no teacher likes to deal with. Those are the ones with the most interesting personalities. I worked in the 1s and 2s room. I also taught after school, so I had my own separate class for the afternoons. There was one little boy in particular named Daniel, who was always making trouble. He would fight with the other babies unprovoked. He would pee on you on purpose while you changed him, and could start stripping at any random moment. Needless to say, Daniel was a handful. As I said before, I have a way with children that act out like this, and before long, Daniel was my little buddy. When a teacher couldn't handle him, he was sent to me, where he would do just fine. One day when his father came to pick him up, he was with me in my class. I had seen his father pick him up plenty of times, so I knew it was him. We had never spoken before. He was hot. Reminded me of Wentworth Miller a little. I was actually kind of attracted to him. So it caught me off guard when he said something along the lines of, "Danny, what the hell are you doing in this N-word bitches class?" This completely caught me off guard because although I'm in the deep south, where racism is everywhere, I had never experienced it at my job. All of the parents were glad to see me, and I had a good rapport with all of them. I didn't respond to his rude comment, however. I just got Daniel ready, and I was hoping he didn't do our secret handshake, which involved a series of hand claps and ends on us pressing our foreheads together and chanting, "I'm the best." Unfortunately, Daniel wouldn't leave until we did the entire handshake. I looked up, expecting his father to be highly upset, but he was just standing there, staring at me with the widest-eyed, toothiest grin that sent chills down my spine. Even Daniel looked up like, "Whoa," and looked back at me. I stood up to say bye and hopefully get him out of my class faster, but he stepped closer to me and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "I like the way you handle my son." The way he said handle made the whole statement sound very perverted. I remained professional and said, "Thank you, he is a joy to have around." The very next day, Daniel didn't come to school. This wasn't out of the ordinary either, because sometimes he went to the daycare by his mother's house, which is further away. When I got to my desk, I noticed a red rose that had been spray-painted black and had a piece of yarn around it like a noose. Another time, I found a small wooden cross on the hood of my car with a lighter next to it. Things like this happened for a few weeks. One day, as the day came to a close, all of the other employees had left for the day, and I had to close. We had a huge ball pit in the back center that covered 50% of the entire classroom. I was wiping down the blocks when I heard the very familiar sound of someone jumping in the ball pit. I got up to investigate, thinking that it was DJ McSqueak, our pet guinea pig, who was notorious for escaping and jumping in the ball pit. I looked in the cage, and sure enough, DJ was not in his cage. I climbed in the pit and tried looking for him, when I noticed a pair of legs in the ball pit. I noped the fuck out of the room and screamed as I heard the roar of plastic balls behind me, indicating that whoever was in was now chasing me. I ran into the next classroom and locked the door. I could see the man's face up against the window, and I recognized Daniel's dad. He was screaming at me to open the door. I started frantically looking for a phone, but I couldn't find one. The main phone was in the office, and the handset that belonged in this classroom was missing. I found the missing handset, but it was dead. I figured that this guy doesn't know that it's dead, and I pretended to call the police. It worked. He had the angriest look on his face, and stormed out of the center. And after I heard the door click, I sprinted to my classroom, locked the door, and called the police for real. They showed up 10 minutes later, and I told them what happened. He was later arrested and charged, but he was out of jail after a month. Daniel, I think you are the sweetest little boy I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I hope one day you find this story and recognize I'm talking about you, and you remember the bond we shared. As for your father, let's not meet. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for watching episode 36. Almost said 35 there. I'm recording these back to back, so I'm a bit muddled. Okay, full disclosure. That Alucard story, I wasn't really sure which Alucard it was. So I googled it based on the description, then I looked at a couple of YouTube videos. So if I messed up the voice, it's probably because I got the wrong Alucard. I mean, the Alucard I'm more familiar with is Johnny Alucard, from Kim Newman's Anno Dracula series. Oh, I love those books, I really do. In fact, I got the audiobook of the last one, and I just keep listening to it over and over and over again. I'm obsessed with it. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you long because I'm about to rush off and start work on the next video. So until next time, thank you very, very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.